everyone. My name is Caroline Goon, and I will be the MC for this event today. In addition, I serve as the Director of External Affairs for the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, which we call AAPI for short. So as we get started here, we at the White House Initiative on Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders recognize that Berkeley sits on the territory of Huchun, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the historic and sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has benefited and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold the University of California, Berkeley more accountable to the needs of American Indian and Indigenous people. This statement was developed in partnership with the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and is a living document. All right, just some housekeeping items, as there are many of us here today. We are going to have a lot of conversations today, both as a group and in your breakout sessions. We ask that you continue to conduct yourselves in a respectful, considerate, and safe manner, and keep an open mind, because this is all about learning and connecting. Our team and our hosts at Berkeley are here to ensure that your experience is enjoyable, and please follow any instructions that are provided by a staff member. All right, so let's get a little warmed up here. Can you turn to the neighbor, your neighbor on your right or on your left, and say to them, "I like your outfit, and I'm really glad you're here today." All right. I saw that many of you did get our dress code, which was business casual, sporting your school pride. So I know some of you wore your belt from your school, some of you have hats, shirts, so thank you. All right, so first, I wanted to start by thanking each and every one of you for coming to our event. Well, this higher ed crowd, you guys are fun. Everyone's very, very chatty. I love that. All right, so welcome to each of you to our first ever Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Higher Education Leadership Development Conference. I bring you greetings on behalf of our Executive Director, Crystal Ka'ai, who could not be here today. She had a pretty good excuse. She got married, and so she couldn't be here. I did try to convince her to come to Berkeley for her honeymoon. So maybe she is around, but she may have chosen a different location, understandably so. So I wanted to share, so before taking on my current role in the White House Initiative, I actually worked in higher education for over 12 years. I started as a program coordinator, which I know some of you are program coordinators, yeah. And then I was promoted just in title to director of, I was promoted just in title to Assistant Director of Administration, which means I became their budget officer, as well as the jack of all trades within the department. Later on, I went on to become the director of the Career Strategy Office and the director of a recruitment office. And by the time I left higher education for federal government, I was in an assistant dean role for marketing and strategic initiatives. So all that to say is that I understand some of the challenges facing higher education, as I'm a survivor. You do what you do day in and day out because you care for the students that you serve. You want them to succeed. You want them to thrive. You have to make some of the really hard decisions. And sometimes the system is working against us, and it's not always easy. When I was in higher education, it actually never even occurred to me that there could be a national conference for AA and NHPIs working in the space to come together to have important and timely discussions while also focusing on our own professional and leadership development. So our small team envisioned this event back in 2023, and we called on our partners at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, and we are bringing you the cream of the crop in facilitators, breakout session leaders, and panel conversations that will be held in a safe space for you to truly reflect and participate in. So raise your hands if you flew in or drove in from other parts of the country to be with us today. Take a look. This is amazing. In addition to our many special guests, yourselves here today, we also have several of our President's Advisory Commissioners here today. The Honorable Dr. Robert Underwood, Dr. Kimberly Chang, Grace Huang, Louisa Bloom, who all traveled in to spend the day with us. In particular, I also want to acknowledge the strong leadership from our venue host, UC Berkeley, the College of Engineering, the Division of Equity and Inclusion, and to the entire team who regularly met with our WIAPI staff and myself to plan this convening and thought through every detail with us. Jane, Amaya, Walter, Elisa, Lisa, Gina, thank you all so much. We also want to recognize representatives from our elected officials' offices. We have representatives from Congresswoman Barbara Lee's office. We have representatives from San Francisco Mayor London Breed, California State Assembly Member Phil Ting, as well as California Commissioner Corinne Makpugai. Thank you all for being here. And last but not least, I want to thank my incredible colleagues at WIAPI and OPM who have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to make today possible. Erica Ninoyu, Rachel Rabusa, Deanna Zhang, Andrew Pang, and Gabriel Young, who actually happens to be attending Berkeley this coming fall for graduate school. All right, so by another show of hands, how many of you have heard of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders before today's event? So raise your hand if you've heard of us. Okay, pretty good. I'm going to share a little bit about WIAPI for those that did not raise their hands. So the White House Initiative and the President's Advisory Commission were both created 25 years ago in 1999 under the Clinton administration. And we have been reauthorized by every administration, both Democratic and Republican, ever since then. In May of 2021, President Biden signed Executive Order 14031 to reestablish and reinvigorate this historic White House initiative. And under this administration, we have the most expansive scope and mandate to date. This includes everything from tackling health, economic and educational disparities to expanding the collection of disaggregated data, which we know is especially critical for many of our populations, such as Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders. I'm also super excited to share that last week, the White House published revisions to government-wide standards on the collection of federal race and ethnicity data for the first time since 1997. The updates will actually improve data collection and disaggregation across every federal agency, ensuring that federal programs, surveys, and more can all better serve our AA and NHPIs as well as the American people. So how does WIAPI do all this work? We do this by leading a whole of government approach that spans interagency policymaking, program development, and outreach efforts to AA and NHPI communities from the Pacific Islands to the East Coast of the United States and everywhere in between. And this includes our engagement with you all today here at Berkeley. So in addition to the many famous accomplishments of UC Berkeley alums, faculty, staff, and the many other reasons why UC Berkeley is infamous or famous, do you know one of the crucial ways that UC Berkeley has made a mark on Asian American history? There's many, yes. So in 1968, there's a lot. Thank you for sharing. So in 1968, there were two graduate students, Emma G. and Yuji Ichioka. They needed a name for their student organization, which was focused on increasing the visibility of activists of Asian descent. And so these two ended up naming their organization Asian American Political Alliance, AAPA, what is believed to be the first public use of Asian American. The term Asian American, very radical at the time, actually the federal government at the time in 1968 was still using the term Oriental. So this was very radical. It would go on to promote pan-Asian alliances, build political power, and influence decades of civil rights activism. In fact, the federal government didn't actually start using the term Asian or Pacific Islander until 9 years later in 1977. So Berkeley, you continue to lead the way. So shout out to everyone from Berkeley. No. And so, as WIAPI embarks on our 25th anniversary this year since the signing of the executive order that established WIAPI, we continue to carry on the work and vision of movers and shakers such as Berkeley alums Emma and Yuji. Speaking of movers and shakers, I now have the distinct honor of introducing an amazing friend and colleague, Erica Moritsugu, who serves as the Deputy Assistant to the President and the first ever Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Senior Liaison at the White House. Please join me in welcoming Erica.
Aloha! And welcome to the first ever Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Higher Education Leadership Development Summit. This first ever summit is hosted and co-sponsored by the White House Initiative on AAN and HPIs and the Office of Personnel Management. And as Carolyn mentioned, we're going to be joined by teams representing the governor, Senator Diya, Congresswoman Lee, Mayor Breed, and Assemblymember Ting. But I'd also like to acknowledge a few of the wonderful people who have made this day possible. Carolyn Goon, Erica Ninoya, and the wonderful team at the White House Initiative. Thank you so much for organizing this event. It is a critical time for us to be talking about AAPIs and Native Hawaiian serving institutions, and we are grateful for your leadership. Dr. Carol Christ, Chancellor at UC Berkeley, thank you so much for your leadership and also, in addition to, providing the space for us to gather to discuss these important topics. Mr. Jason Tango, White House Liaison and Senior Advisor for Strategic Initiatives at the Office of Personnel Management. Your friendship and your leadership and the partnership of OPM was critical to today's partnership and events. Amanda Miller, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Higher Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education. Thank you for coming out today to represent the Department of Education, which is a critical partner, but probably the best friend to each one of the schools represented, because you get to travel around the world bringing good news, which is, I'm a little jealous sometimes. My colleague, of course, Faith Rinda from the Office of Public Engagement, as a dear partner who builds coalitions across the nation on so many issues, is here with us from the White House, as well as my colleague, Deborah Eisenberg, who serves in the White House Chief of Staff's office with me. And then a special shout out to our beloved commissioners on the President's Advisory Commission on AAN and HPIs who are here with us today and that we'll hear from later, and I hope you get to know all of them. They actually have a lot of opinions and wisdom, so tap into it while we've got them. The President and Vice President's support for AAPIs and Native Hawaiian serving institutions is literally unprecedented. Last September, President Biden issued the first ever presidential proclamation to officially recognize AAPI Week and to uplift the role that these institutions play in empowering our next generation of AAN and HPI leaders. Under the Biden-Harris administration, more than $5 billion in federal funding has already been delivered to AAPI campuses through the President's American Rescue Plan. And across the federal government, agencies, including the Departments of Education, Defense, and Energy, are working to improve the capacity and infrastructure of AAPIs through grants, cooperative agreements, and direct financial relief for students. And as President Biden announced at his summit with Pacific Island Forum leaders at the White House last September, the United States has begun the process of doubling the number of academic exchanges with Pacific Islander students. As you all know, AAPIs make up a small percentage of U.S. colleges and universities, but they enroll nearly half of the nation's AAN and HPI undergraduate students. In addition, AAPIs employ and cultivate many of America's top AAN and HPI leaders. We could not achieve any of this without the extraordinary staff, faculty, and administrators who work tirelessly to advance educational equity for our diverse AAN and HPI communities. So congratulations to the White House Initiative and OPM, and thank you to Berkeley for holding this historic Higher Education Leadership Development Summit. I look forward to meeting many of you later today. And now, it is my honor to read a letter from Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. I don't think we're finished. Yep. And this is dated today, April 2nd, 2024. And I'll quote her directly. And she says, "I'm honored to extend my warmest greetings as you convene for the 2024 Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Higher Education Summit. When my mother was 19, I think you know where I'm going with this, she came to the United States from India to become a breast cancer researcher. In fact, she was one of the first women of color to hold a position as a scientist at the University of California, Berkeley. She built a wonderful life here, and she raised my sister and me to be proud of our heritage. I'm grateful that you continue to work together to cultivate a space that confronts the systemic barriers to success for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities within higher education. Your efforts to advance equity, expands opportunity, and open doors enable students to be supported in the inclusive professional environments. We know that this makes a lifelong difference. The President and I are working to end disparities in educational outcomes for the AAN and HPI youth and students of all ages. We are committed to advancing educational equity. That is why we have invested over $6 billion in Asian American and Native Hawaiian and American Pacific Islander serving institutions, and we have taken new steps to lower costs and make higher education more accessible.
Great.
Additionally, we have forgiven nearly $144 billion in student debt for almost 4 million Americans. As you know, we are also working to ensure that all people across our nation can live free from violence, hate, and fear. Together, we will continue fighting to provide AAN and HPI communities the resources, security, and opportunities they need to thrive. Thank you for your commitment to building a more equitable and prosperous future for AAN and HPI students and communities. Always know that the President and I are working right alongside you. I send my best wishes for a meaningful summit and a bright future ahead. And this is signed Kamala D. Harris.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Vice President Kamala Harris. I'd like to now invite the Dean of the College of Engineering, Sujay King Liu, to share some remarks. As she comes up here, I wanted to share that I met Dean Liu in DC when she was here for a conference, and I remember feeling so lucky having to have one-on-one time with her because people were really fighting for her attention, wanted to talk with her. And so the fact that I got to sit down with her for 15 minutes just by myself, it truly was an honor and a pleasure. Dean Liu is a leader on this campus. She's humble. She's amazing. And she is the one who is, as well as many other folks at Berkeley, who have welcomed us to this campus. So thank you so much, Dean Liu.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Love that outfit. Good morning and welcome to all of you to the University of California at Berkeley. It is an honor for our community here to host the inaugural Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Higher Education Leadership Development Summit today. And I think it seems most appropriate for us to hold this event here on our campus, on our AAPI campus, because it faces the Pacific through the Golden Gate. And it is a vibrant part of the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area region, which is one of the most diverse regions in the United States. Today, over 25% of Bay Area residents, this is roughly 2 million people, are of Asian American or Pacific Islander descent. Yeah. The Asian American and Pacific Islander population in the United States is the fastest growing immigrant population, and it is immensely diverse. So here at UC Berkeley, we recognize the intrinsic relationship between diversity and excellence in all of our endeavors. And we have a deep commitment to serving the best interests of our diverse society. We know that active participation and leadership in addressing the most pressing issues facing our local and global communities are central to our mission as a public university. So here we nurture and support the development of a diversity of leaders, including in higher education. So we are very proud to have strong representation of Asian Americans in our leadership positions here. I'd just like to take a moment to introduce those who are already here with us today. Maybe if you could just stand up. Dean Raka Ray of the Division of Social Sciences in the College of Letters and Science. Lok Su, who is Associate Vice Chancellor for Research. I'm not sure if any other of my decanal colleagues are here, but we have a total of 5 Asian American deans and 1 associate vice chancellor, and also many assistant vice chancellors, among many others. So I'm really grateful for their partnership and for their camaraderie. But we know that there's always still room for improvement. So our Asian American and Pacific Islander Thriving Initiative here has engaged many stakeholders just over the past year to figure out how we can better foster and support the belonging and success of Asian American and Pacific Islander students, staff, and faculty here on our campus. I applaud the Biden-Harris administration for its commitment to advancing equity, justice, and opportunity for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. And I look forward to learning with you all today how we can be even better agents for positive change as leaders in higher education. Now it is my great honor to introduce the leader of UC Berkeley, Chancellor Carol Christ, who is no less committed to advancing equity, justice, and belonging. So Chancellor Christ arrived here at the UC Berkeley campus as an assistant professor in 1970. In her long career, she has served with distinction in many leadership roles, including as department chair, as dean, as executive vice chancellor, and also as provost. As our fearless leader, Chancellor Christ has been a stalwart champion of diversity, and she is a tireless advocate for the power and purpose of community. She also has an innate humility, and so she asked me to keep my introduction of her very short. Like, here's Chancellor Christ. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Chancellor Christ to give us some welcoming remarks.
Good morning. What a wonderful room to look out on. On behalf of our campus community, I want to welcome you to an event whose importance cannot be exaggerated, given its dedication to building, supporting, and sustaining a community of higher education leaders that truly reflect the society that we serve, and who are as diverse in their origins and identities as they are in terms of their skills, perspectives, and academic interests. I wish to welcome in particular the leadership teams of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, Senior Advisor Erica Ninoyu, Carolyn Goon, the Director of External Affairs, Gabriel Young, Staff Assistant and Youth Lead, and their White House colleague, Erica Moritsugu, Deputy Assistant to the President and AA and NHPI Senior Liaison. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're honored to host this essential gathering, and while I admit to a certain degree of bias, I believe there could be no better location for this gathering than here on the Berkeley campus. We've worked hard to achieve our status as an Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institution. That designation plays an important role in advancing and accelerating UC Berkeley's efforts to expand the support, resources, and services offered to AA and PI people and communities across our campus. With that in mind, we could not be more thrilled to have this opportunity to support and advance a White House initiative whose goals and aspirations align so closely with our own. It's both inspiring and reassuring to have with us today so many higher education leaders, staff, faculty, and administrators, all of us bound together by our dedication to this initiative's purpose and objectives. With growing public skepticism about the value and values of America's colleges and universities, with the increasing politicization of higher education, and with an ever-growing array of complex societal, cultural, and scientific challenges that must be tackled, never has the quality and composition of our academic and administrative leadership been more important. These ever-present internal and external challenges to our institutions, our people, our values, place a particular emphasis on building strong, cohesive, and highly supportive communities that enable us to take intellectual, programmatic, and operational risks, that encourage and help all members of the community to take on leadership roles that leverage the inherent power that comes from unity of purpose. Before us is a day filled with opportunities to learn, grow, engage, and connect. I hope you'll make the very most of what is on offer, for the stakes could not be higher. The quality, the diversity, the knowledge, preparation, and values of our leaders will have a direct, lasting impact on our students, and by extension, on the future of our society and our democracy. I get a vicarious thrill and anticipation of the conversations and collaborations that will take place through the day and beyond. There's hope in the air this morning, and there's great promise in our shared and collective future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Chris, for welcoming us to your campus. And now I'd like to invite Jason Tanko, White House Liaison and Senior Advisor for Strategic Initiatives from the Office of Personnel Management, to provide some welcome remarks. Please join me in welcoming him.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Wow, it's a packed house. Congrats to the WIAMPI staff. This is amazing. As Caroline mentioned, my name is Jason Tanko. I'm the White House Liaison and Senior Advisor for Strategic Initiatives at the Office of Personnel Management. And it's really, really great to be here with you all today. And it feels great because it feels like I'm coming home in a few ways. I was born and raised here in the Bay Area. Is anyone else here from the Bay? Amazing. And I actually used to work at the initiative for 4 years during the Obama-Biden administration. So it feels like it's a reunion in a way, just seeing so many colleagues, former colleagues. And 3, because I'm a proud UC Berkeley graduate. I got my master's in public affairs at the Goldman School of Public Policy. So it's really, shout out to GSPP. Okay. All right. So it's really, really great just to be home in so many ways. And actually just 5 years ago, I started my journey at GSPP. So just reflecting, walking around campus, it's really great to be back at UC Berkeley. And it's an honor to return to campus, this time representing for the Biden-Harris administration with my colleagues. So OPM is proud to host today's summit with WIAMPI. And first off, I just wanted to, again, shout out the WIAMPI staff for gathering us all today. Could we give them a round of applause? And I think some of my OPM colleagues are here. Any OPM colleagues, wave your hands. Thank you all so much for all your help too, folks from our Center for Leadership Development that you'll hear from later today in the breakout sessions. And finally, I also wanted to recognize our fellow federal employees. Any federal employees in the room right now? Raise your hand. All right, awesome. Well, please talk to us. I think we're all excited to be here to connect our community to meaningful career opportunities in federal service. So, show of hands, and feel free to be completely honest. Who here knows what OPM is and what we do? Okay, that's like a good amount of you. All right. Well, it's okay too, because a lot of people don't, but admittedly, our role isn't as obvious as some of the other agencies. Protecting our environment, that's the EPA. Serving our veterans, that's the VA. Building and supporting the largest and most complex workforce in the nation, that is OPM. So essentially, in a nutshell, we are like the HR for the entire federal government. We help agencies with things like hiring, workforce training, and retirement services, and we make sure federal employees have competitive pay, great benefits, flexible work schedules, and much more. And that's a big lift when you consider that the federal workforce is 2.2 million people. We have a foothold in every community, and we impact every sector of the economy. OPM's vision for our federal workforce is built on 3 pillars. The first is inclusivity, that the federal workforce is strongest when we draw from the full diversity and talent of America, and that includes and especially includes AANHPIs. The second is engagement, that we should be responsive and engaged in our work. And finally, we should ensure that the workforce has the right skill sets to deliver the services our communities need. And we all know that our nation would benefit from having diverse individuals, especially AANHPIs, in public service. As we all know here in higher education leaders throughout this room, our community is ambitious, mission-driven, and full of the talent that we need in this rapidly changing world. So whatever your dream job is, there's a version of it in the federal government. And more than 80%, I don't know if you all know this, of the jobs are actually outside of Washington, D.C. So whether you want to work full-time on AAPI engagement at the initiative, whether you want to lend your skills in research at the NIH, help your community rebuild after a national disaster with FEMA, or maybe you want to go to the moon with NASA, I don't know if you all heard, did you all see the job announcement that NASA's looking for astronauts right now? Serious story. You can go to usajobs.gov if you're interested. The application actually closes on April 16th, so do what you need to do to qualify to be an astronaut before then. But as you can see, again, there's any version of your dream job can be found in the federal government. So I just wanted to close by actually making a pitch to you all as higher education leaders to think about someone who would want to join the federal government, or maybe you yourself would like to join the federal government. For students and recent graduates, there are many pathways to serving. You can be a paid intern at a federal agency or the White House. I don't know if folks know the White House is paying interns now. You can apply for a recent graduate position in USA Jobs. You can join as a presidential management fellow. If you're mid-career, you can apply to be a White House fellow. You can serve as a presidential appointee. And if you're interested, feel free to talk to me or my colleagues after. And actually, for many of you all in higher education, you can actually serve via the Intergovernmental Personnel Act Mobility Program, which is essentially a detail to the federal government. So as you can see, there are plenty of opportunities to serve. President Biden and Vice President Harris, along with many of us here today, are really committed to make sure that the administration looks like America. OPM, and I know my colleagues speaking on behalf of them, really want to be able to work with you all to help make that happen. So again, just wanted to thank you for having us. Thank AAPI for partnering with OPM, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit. And actually, before I close, so I used to be deputy director of the initiative, and I used to take selfies all the time. So I'm sorry if I'm taking anyone's thunder, but can we just take like a real quick selfie? All right. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Okay, so that became a quick recruitment event, which I love it. So if anyone wants to be an astronaut, you know how to find it, look for the post online. And also, we also will be doing a large group photo in a little bit. But at this time, I'd like to invite Amanda Miller to make some remarks as well. She is currently the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Higher Education Programs in the Office of Post-Secondary Education with the U.S. Department of Education. Join me in welcoming her.
Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be a hard act to follow with the selfie, and I didn't know I could have been an astronaut when I was applying to be a political appointee, so I may restart I'm a little past mid-career, but I'm going to talk to you afterwards.
Yep.
As Erica said, my name is Amanda Miller, and I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Post-Secondary Education at the Department of Education. And in addition to that being a very long title, what it means is I have the privilege of overseeing all of our federal grants from the Department of Ed to post-secondary institutions, which is why I think you referenced my good news. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited to build our relationship and continue partnering with all of you in the room. I'm proud to work for an administration that has demonstrated its commitment to AAPIs and ANAs through its words and its actions. Since the beginning of the Biden-Harris administration, AAPIs have received more than $6.6 billion from the department, including more than $5.8 billion in COVID funds. While future discretionary funding for the AAPI program ultimately depends on what is appropriated by Congress, the President has requested funding increases from Congress for minority-serving institutions, including AAPIs and ANAs. The President's fiscal year 25 budget, which was released a couple weeks ago, included $25.8 million for ANAs and $19.9 million for AAPIs. The budget would also raise the Pell Grant to $8,145, an increase of $750, which would move us on a path to doubling the maximum Pell Grant by 2029. I'm proud to work for an education secretary, Secretary Cardona, who has been leading a department committed to ensuring that all students receive an education that enables them to thrive in school and in life. Building a higher education, as you all know, that is inclusive, delivers real value to students, and promotes equity and upward mobility is essential, and it's a critical part of the Biden-Harris administration's efforts to grow America's middle class and strengthen our nation's global competitiveness. But as you also all know, it doesn't happen without overcoming real challenges happening today at our institutions. Our current higher education system leaves too many students behind, especially those from historically underserved communities of color and lower income communities. We have a college completion crisis in which just 3 in 5 first-time students earn a credential within 6 years nationally. That is why the department has launched Raise the Bar, College Excellence and Equity, which is a call to action for America's colleges and universities to champion inclusive success for all post-secondary students by increasing completion rates, closing equity gaps, and delivering on value. Under Secretary Cardona's leadership, the Department of Education is taking on these current challenges by intentionally collaborating with partners at the state and national levels, with institutions of higher education, and with other stakeholders. We at the department also recognize the importance of college students' voices, and that is why the department recently issued a toolkit to promote voter participation for students. If you haven't seen it, it's on ed.gov, and we hope you will all incorporate some of the strategies included to ensure that all of your students have the tools and resources they need to fully participate in our democracy and be civically engaged. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention the Better FAFSA, and I'm sure many of the higher ed people in the room have a lot of questions. It is not what I work on at the Department of Ed. But I do want to say on behalf of the department that change is hard, as a lot of you know. And I wanted to share that the department is proud of what the Better FAFSA will do. It will result in more students qualifying for aid, more students qualifying for the maximum Pell, and it will reduce the time for students and families to fill it out. It's a big undertaking, but I encourage all of you to recognize the improvements that will occur and share that with the students and families that you work with. It's exciting to be here today with so many of you who I know benefit from the federal funding that is provided from the Department of Education as well as from other federal agencies. So I just want to mention a few ways to ensure that we can strengthen our partnership. I encourage you all to stay up to speed on grant opportunities, some of which I'll talk about on the panel, technical assistance workshops, and events by signing up to listservs from ED and regularly checking the federalregister.gov and grants.gov. The department is committed to doing our part by making sure that we provide the supports and the technical assistance that you all need as you both apply for and implement grant funding. I also encourage AAPIs and ANAs to be more intentional in working across their campuses and sectors to leverage federal grants, collaborate on issues, and promote opportunities, including calling for peer reviewers for ED grants and encouraging applications for appointments to federal boards and commissions. As you may know, last year, for the first time, President Biden issued a proclamation on National AAPI Week. The president captured the critical role AAPIs play in that proclamation, stating, quote, "By putting higher education within reach of Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander students, our nation's nearly 200 AAPIs embody my belief that diversity is our strength as a nation," end quote. We see our grant work as part of that commitment and are excited to partner with you all to help support AAPI, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian students access and complete college. Thank you for inviting me here today, and thank you for the work you all do every day on your campuses.
Just out of curiosity, how many people here know what AAPI stands for? If you do, on the count of 3, let's yell it out. 1, 2, 3. Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander Serving Institution. Good, not bad. I'd say that's like a B. Okay, now, a harder question. Who knows what ANNHSI stand for? Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, daddy. Alaska Native Hawaiian Serving Institution. So I knew not as many knew what that stood for. That's okay. So that actually tells me that our next panel discussion is going to be something that many of us can learn a lot from. So to kick us off, I'd like to invite Faith Rinda, Public Engagement Coordinator from the White House Office of Public Engagement, to provide some brief remarks before the panel discussion begins. Faith?
Thank you, Caroline. Good morning, everybody. My name is Faith Rinda, and as Caroline mentioned, I join you today on behalf of the White House Office of Public Engagement, where I serve on our civil rights team supporting our outreach efforts to Black, Latino, and AANHPI communities. It is my immense honor to be here with you all today, not only as a Bay Area native, East Bay, okay, I see a few hands, but also as a first-generation college student who benefited from the advocacy and dedication of educators and advocates like yourselves who made a path to a degree possible for me. Each person here has a unique appreciation for how life-changing a quality higher education can be, but also how difficult it is to still access for many in our country. This is particularly true of people of color, including AANHPI students who face significant barriers to accessing and completing college. And we all know well, persistent barriers like the model minority myth have frequently left AANHPI students out of the conversation on addressing the disparities in our higher education system. This is an issue that the Biden-Harris administration has consistently worked to address. With strong support from advocates like you, we've taken historic steps to ensure that AANHPI students and the institutions that disproportionately serve them have what they need. This includes, as Erica mentioned earlier, securing billions of dollars in federal funding. It includes bringing federal agencies together and gathering the input of community leaders, including sessions like today, to strengthen the capacity and infrastructure of AAPIs. And it includes the first ever proclamation issued last year to establish National AAPI Week. The administration's efforts do not end here, though. Through the White House Office of Public Engagement, we are tasked with building the bridge between Americans and the president, removing obstacles and barriers to develop an open line of communication and ensure resources are reaching Americans. This work takes many forms, but notably last November, in partnership with WIOMPI, we hosted the first ever first-generation college student day, bringing over 90 students from across the country, including from AAPIs, to hear their stories and connect them with resources. Notably, we also recently welcomed a new AANHPI liaison to the White House, Koda Mizutani, to help ensure that our AANHPI community continues to see its work and priorities reflected in the president's agenda. These are only a couple of the initiatives, but I hope that you will keep up with our team and stay updated with us through our social media channels at White House OPE 46. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram. And with that, I look forward today to hearing more from the amazing leaders in this room and connecting with you all today. So I'm going to hand it off to our amazing moderator for the first panel today, Mai Kwa Nguyen.